What's going on, bottom line viewers? It is Kevole, it is Father Hawk. 2019, it is the Happy New Year. We are starting our NFL playoff season. We're hoping for the best for 2019, and it's a pretty interesting playoff race that we're going to be having here. And we're pretty excited about it because really, you look at the AFC specifically, you could argue that any of the six teams can win in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. In the NFC, you have a little bit different because I think that there's two tiers here, and we'll get into the NFC in a little bit. But the AFC, you could really look at this, and you could, as I said, you can make it a pro and a con for who will win and advance to the Super Bowl. So let's start there. Let's start with that matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. The Indianapolis Colts got in with their 33-17 win over the Tennessee Titans in Luckville, or Nashville for those who live there. They have done a very nice job overall of taking away, kind of Patriot-esque in a way, of taking away the strengths of the team that they're facing against. The Houston Texans, one of the arguments about the Houston Texans has been that schedule. It seems like it's been a pretty easy schedule. There's not a lot of lookout for the Houston Texans right now. All that being said, this game is in Houston, and I just look at this, and in terms of where the talent is, I think you have to go with the Houston Texans. I think overall they're the more talented team. I think the Indianapolis Colts is one of those teams that people are going to be talking about next year in Super Bowl contender mode, I could see, but they need another draft to get there. Tough on the road. I think Deshaun Watson will play a really good game. Loss of Demaryius Thomas will hurt, but I do think that there are other receivers that can make plays. It might be a shootout, but the way I see it is the Houston Texans are going to defeat the Indianapolis Colts on the first game on Saturday and advance to the next round in the AFC. Then the next AFC game is on Sunday morning. It is the Los Angeles Rams playing the Baltimore Ravens, and they did face a couple weeks ago where the Baltimore Ravens walked into LA and they did win. Dominated, quite frankly, defensively. Big interception by Brandon Carr. Baltimore Ravens came away with a big stop at the end with C.J. Mosley knocking out the Pittsburgh Steelers. Two teams that I think a lot of people are on side of that can get to the Super Bowl. Again, this is the question: is can you win a rookie quarterback like Lamar Jackson? He seems unfazed. He seems in control. And this team is in Baltimore Raven type of mode where their defense is going to dominate. Their quarterback isn't going to necessarily be spectacular, but it's going to do enough to get the job done. But the LA Chargers have one advantage that a lot of teams haven't had with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens yet, and they've already played them. Yes, they lost, but they played them. So they kind of are already familiar with what Lamar Jackson is going to do. My big concern, and you probably have heard me say this before, because I'm not a big Michael Crabtree fan, like ask Richard Sherman, but I think that one of the areas that I think the Chargers have is I think that their weapons offensively are going to create a bit of a problem here because I think that this will be a game that will come down to late in the fourth quarter, and I think that the Chargers can make the big play. I look at Keenan Allen, I look at the Williams, I look at the running game for the Chargers, and I think that they're going to do enough to get to Baltimore. I think Lamar Jackson might actually struggle a lot more than people think in this game. I don't see this being a high-scoring game, but I see that this is a game where the Chargers will build throughout. The front seven for the LA Chargers is very strong, and that secondary will find ways to create offense too. Casey Hayward had a big 2-point pick last game against the Denver Broncos, so I could see a defensive score for the Chargers here as well. I see the Chargers winning this by about a comfortable 10-point margin, actually, so I'm going to go 23-13 Chargers. They will go on to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the next round. So let's just continue in the AFC Divisional. Los Angeles Chargers facing the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans facing the New England Patriots. And let's start with the Chargers and the Chiefs because that game has already happened. If you remember the last Thursday night football game of the year, Phillip Rivers, the Kansas City Chiefs had a big lead. Chargers came back. They went for the 2-point conversion instead of the 1 point to go to overtime, and they got it. Very gutsy call. Kansas City is one of the better home field advantages in the National Football League. It's been in battles with Seattle to be one of the loudest stadiums in the National Football League. Andy Reid has stumbled in opportunities here. They blew a lead last year against the Tennessee Titans, a team that was not a very good team last year. Let's be honest, the Tennessee Titans. Can the Kansas City Chiefs score points? Absolutely. They've proven that all year. But I think one of the problems that I have with the Kansas City Chiefs is Kareem Hunt brings a different dynamic than a Spencer Ware and a Damian Williams. You watch the game against Seattle. Yeah, they scored a lot of points, but Travis Kelce wasn't a huge factor in that game, and Tyreek Hill wasn't a huge factor in that game. They're a lot easier to take away when you don't need to watch a Kareem Hunt as closely. No question Patrick Mahomes is going to ball out. The other question with the Kansas City Chiefs is that defense. And I look at the Chargers' offensive weapons. If there's a team that's willing to go score for score with the Kansas City Chiefs, it would be the LA Chargers. And I think that they can match them. And not only match them, I think that they can beat them. I've kind of saw how this was going all year. If you look back at the prediction videos that we did at the Bottom Line View, I had the Kansas City Chiefs as the number one seed, and I had the Chargers in this position. And I think the Chargers have been the team that has grown. That's kind of how I saw it. And the Chargers will grow into the AFC Championship. They are going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and advance, which means they will face either the Houston Texans or the New England Patriots. And as mentioned, the Houston Texans have not ever beaten New England. Bill Belichick against his former protege, Bill O'Brien. And yeah, the Patriots are coming in struggling, but I do think that they're going to be able to run the ball here. I think Chris Hogan will have a pretty solid game in this one, and New England will find a way to shut down DeAndre Hopkins. I think one of the weaknesses that the Texans has is they have an inconsistent running game, which allows teams to take away your strength, and I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to struggle here. I do think that this is going to be a close game, but I do think the New England Patriots will pull this out. So who wins this? Now, sorry, Mitch, I have to apologize here, but I've stuck with this at the beginning of the year. Yes, I know the LA Chargers. The Chargers have never won in New England. They've never beaten New England, ever. I get that. But to me, the way that I see this is I'm really intrigued by the Chargers receiving. I think Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Terrell Williams, I think how you use Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler is going to be interesting. I think their defense is a really strong enough defense that I think that the Patriots offensively are going to have a lot of problems. And I think defensively, Chargers are going to give the Patriots some problems. Yeah, I know the offensive line for the Chargers isn't the greatest. I think the Patriots will be able to get some pressure. But to me, I think the Chargers are going to be on the field a little bit more than the New England Patriots. And I think this will be one of those close games. It's not going to be a blowout. But I think the Chargers are going to squeak this out. And the Los Angeles Chargers are my AFC representative to go to the Super Bowl. Would I be surprised, though, if it's any other team? No, it wouldn't. Because I think the AFC, as I said, is there's six legitimate arguments for anyone to win the Super Bowl, to advance or go to the Super Bowl, including the Indianapolis Colts. So if I'm wrong, I wouldn't be surprised. But the way I see it is I have the Los Angeles Chargers representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Now, leads us to the NFC. Let's start with the Seattle Seahawks against the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys winning the NFC East for the third time in 5 years. The Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs for seventh time in 9 years. A team that was supposed to be rebuilding, recharging. Pete Carroll found a way to get 10 wins from this team. This team isn't considered the most talented team, but run the football. They'll run the football, and then again they'll run the football, and then they'll hit play action and use their receivers, and they'll play some tough defense. The Dallas Cowboys, they're pretty much the same way. You know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to find a way to get Amari Cooper involved, and their young linebackers, Jalen Smith and Van Esch, are going to be factors. But to me, and the offensive line, I think for the Dallas Cowboys is going to give the Seattle Seahawks a bit of a tough time with Frank Clark and Jarron Reed, who is not getting a lot of attention, but watch out for Jarron Reed in this game. But I think this is what this comes down to, I think the Seahawks offensively bring more depth. I think that Doug Baldwin healthy brings a different dynamic in this game, and Russell Wilson has playoff success. He has won. They have never, when they've been in the playoffs, they have not been eliminated in the first round. And before people will argue about the Seahawks on the road and that perception, I think this year has been a lot different. I think they played very tough on the road. You look at that 49er game, it's not that they didn't play without any emotion. They just took a lot of terrible penalties, and it was a very frustrating game that way. And sometimes, yeah, I think the last 2 games they played down to their opponent, which is kind of not surprising considering that they clinched the playoffs, really. To me, Pete Carroll is a drastic advantage over Jason Garrett, and coaching-wise, I think Russell Wilson is a far enough advance over Dak Prescott. And I think if you can take away Amari Cooper, I don't know what other receiver that the Dallas Cowboys can bring to this party. Yeah, Blaine Jarwin got 3 touchdowns last week. That's fine. But I'm not worried about Blaine Jarwin. I'm not worried about the Cowboys receivers. And if this comes down to weapon-wise, I think the Seattle Seahawks will edge this out, and they are going to advance the NFC Divisional round. The next one is the Philadelphia Eagles facing this year's Philadelphia Eagles, the Chicago Bears. The Bears have been a fantastic story this year, getting the acquisition of Khalil Mack from the Oakland Raiders, winning the NFC North. The Philadelphia Eagles have been that same story as well. Considered for dead by most people by mid-November, have found a way to fight their way back with St. Nick Foles and getting themselves back into the playoffs. Nick Foles has done a fantastic job, but the Philadelphia Eagles have dominated and have played very well defensively as well. Specifically, you look at that game against the LA Rams, where they dominated 30-23, made a big stop. This team is a really strong all-around team. I think the acquisition of Michael Bennett, of course, has been big. They've been able to make plays. They have found ways to get everyone involved other than Zach Ertz, Darren Sproles, and Wendell Smallwood are running the ball enough. There's a lot of intrigue with the Philadelphia Eagles. But to me, I have to kind of stick with the Chicago Bears here. The Bears are at home, where Mitch Trubisky in this running game plays a lot better. And the Bears have I think, created a problem with that whole Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, create a matchup problem because you can use Cohen in a receiving way. You're going to cause a lot of confusion for Nick Foles defensively, not only Khalil Mack, but that secondary as well. They can score defensively. They can score on special teams. I think this will be a really interesting game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles find a way to squeak this out, but I just think this one game, I honestly did flip around. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears here. I just think that at home they're going to find a way, and I think Khalil Mack and Mitch Trubisky are going to do enough to advance to the next round, which leaves the Seattle Seahawks against the New Orleans Saints and the Chicago Bears heading to LA to the LA Rams. And I think I'm going to start with the Bears and the Rams here because I've been pretty skeptical about the Los Angeles Rams for most of the year. I think that when we watched that game against the Chicago Bears, that you could argue was that cold, was that just one game, and then the way the Philadelphia Eagles dominated them on Sunday Night Football, that you certainly had some questions about where the LA Rams were. And you know who also had questions about where the LA Rams were was Sean McVay. And they brought in C.J. Anderson, and he has been lights out the last 2 games of the season. Yes, it was against San Francisco and Arizona, but it's the way that C.J. Anderson runs the ball. It was almost like C.J. Anderson has brought the thing that I think the LA Rams were missing, and that's that physical, I'm going to hit you running back. I think it creates a different dynamic for the LA Rams when you can bring in Todd Gurley and you can bring in C.J. Anderson. The loss of Cooper Kupp is a big loss. He's kind of a physical possession, kind of Wes Welker-ish receiver. I've been saying that the LA Rams are one and done, but I think the acquisition of C.J. Anderson has changed this a little bit for me, and I'm going to pick the Rams over the Bears. The other thing that you have to look at is Mitch Trubisky has not been good on the road at all this year, and that's been a big problem. Which Mitch are you going to get? Unfortunately for the LA Rams, I think they're willing to go on a little bit of track meet. If the Bears can score defensively or a special team in any other way, I think that will help. But I think the Rams, although they will feel like the road team, I think they're comfortable in that stadium. I think that they will do enough to advance the NFC Championship against the Chicago Bears. And then you have the Seahawks against the New Orleans Saints. And yes, the Seahawks are able to run the ball. I think Chris Carson, Mike Davis, Rashard Penny bring a great, unique thing. Russell Wilson has been there before. You have Tyler Lockett making plays. Doug Baldwin will make plays. But the New Orleans Saints seem to me just on another level than anybody else, quite frankly. You've got Kamara and Ingram. You've got Michael Thomas, who I think is going to be one of the better receivers in this playoff. I think he's been clutch. He gets the big play done. Breeze is going to find receivers we've never heard of before. There'll probably be some guy that's in the audience. They'll just have him on and make a reception. But that defense is playing well as well. And I think that front seven against that Seahawks offensive line, which has been better this year, but I just don't see them playing the way that they are against the New Orleans Saints. The way that they're playing that defense is an underrated defense. Their offense has sputtered the last little bit, but their defense has gotten them this far. Dennis Allen is a guy that I think should be getting some head coaching interviews. The LA Rams versus the New Orleans Saints in the NFC Championship. They've already played this game. The LA Rams came back from a 35-10 deficit to make it a game, but the New Orleans Saints eventually pulled away. And I think that this will be another boat race. And I see the Saints doing the same thing again. I think that Drew Brees, the offense of the Saints, will score points against an ultimately suspect back end for the LA Rams. I think C.J. Anderson brings a different dynamic, but I think the loss of Cooper Kupp is going to really hurt. And having this game in New Orleans, which is the best home field advantage, in my opinion, in the National Football League, makes this a win for the New Orleans Saints. So I have Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints facing Phillip Rivers and the LA Chargers in the Super Bowl. And if you looked at the bottom line preview, I have stuck with it. So I'm sticking with the same two teams. Yay me. And so who wins? I still think it's the New Orleans Saints. I think the New Orleans Saints will go into Atlanta and win the Super Bowl. They will have the air quote home field because they're the closer team, but they're just a more complete team overall. I think their defense, again, with Cameron Jordan, Rankin, you got strong linebackers, you've got a strong secondary. I think that the question that you have with Phillip Rivers is, I think Phillip Rivers will. This is the other question with the Chargers overall, is Phillip Rivers tries at times to do too much. And I think at this game he will try to do too much. And I think that this will create a problem. And I think that this might not be that close of a Super Bowl, unfortunately. I think I'm looking at a 10-point win. But I do have the New Orleans Saints defeating the Los Angeles Chargers and winning this year's Super Bowl. You guys let me know what you think of this video. Where am I in comparison to everybody else? Do you agree or disagree? Like, subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, and we will talk to you all soon. Later.